the recording, since this is a public meeting, we need to record. And my name is Laura Myers. I am the co-chair of UNNC's Planning and Zoning Committee, and John.
Hello, I'm John Arnold.
Who's the co-chair, the other co-chair. And I'm going to share the screen with our agenda. And the first order of business on the agenda is a welcome, which I just did, call to order, introductions, and approval of the agenda. So I think I'll introduce myself a little bit more, and which is to say that I've been on this Planning and Zoning Committee from its inception, which was probably about half a year after UNNC began. And I have been on the board on and off, currently on, and I live in the Angeles Vista neighborhood. John?
Hi, I'm John Arnold. I'm a at-large representative on UNNC, living in Jefferson Park. I'm also on, I've been on HPOZ boards for about 15 years now, including presently I'm on the Jefferson Park HPOZ board.
Okay, so I can't now, since I've got the agenda up, I can't see who else is here other than I know that Audrey and Jasmine are here.
I see Audrey and Jasmine, that's about it.
If they could introduce themselves, please.
I'm on my phone. Am I unmuted?
Yes,
you are.
I'm Audrey Arlington. I'm a resident of Jefferson Park.
Thank you. And
hi, I'm Jasmine Johnson. I'm a resident, I think we consider West Adams area, sort of Arlington.
I think you're in the Avenues.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And also Paul King has joined the meeting. Paul, we're just doing introductions.
Oh, great. Thanks for the intro.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Paul King.
Right. So of Kenny Heights. Okay, so so basically the next item is the approval of the agenda. I do want to point out that the way UNNC structures its committees is that we only appoint our chairs and co-chairs. And beyond that, anyone who is present and participating in a committee meeting, any kind of committee of UNNC, is a member of that committee for the course of that meeting. And that means you cannot just participate, but also make a motion and vote. Our votes in general terms, not the vote to approve the agenda, but votes on anything else are actually recommendations to the governing board. And the governing board is an elected deliberative body, which is the final decision maker on behalf of UNNC. So with that said, on tonight's agenda, we only really have one long-ish or shortish, but one significant discussion. And John, were you about to move to approve the agenda?
I was going to move to, I was going to move to the council. We have a sixth participant, Joyce, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Joyce Sales. I live here in the West Adams neighborhood. About 18 years here in the West Adams neighborhood. I'm native Californian. I grew up in around this area, the Crenshaw district. I sell real estate. I'm a part of Black Women's for Wellness organization. I'm getting ready to participate in a LA Care, become a committee member for LA Care Health Equity Council Committee. And, you know, I advocate, community advocate with LA County Department of Mental Health, you know, to work advocating for maintaining our mental health.
Great. Well, welcome. And we also, Chris Driscoll has joined us. Chris, if you want to briefly introduce yourself, Chris?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, hi. I live in Jefferson Park
Great.
and have popped in a few meetings in the past.
Great.
So good meeting
Welcome.
to attend more. Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
So I move to approve the minutes as presented. I mean, the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Anyone in the
Second.
meeting can second. Thank you. Great. We have was that Joyce that seconded or Jasmine?
It was Audrey, but it occurs
Oh,
to me
Audrey.
at the meeting that I'm seconding the minutes on, so maybe I should not.
Okay. Can we have someone who can second, please? Anybody?
Yeah, we need to approve the agenda.
I second.
Great.
Jasmine.
Thank you. Paul got in there right under the wire, so Paul seconded. I'm gonna call the vote.
Okay. And yeah, call the vote. I say yes.
Yes.
This is just a voice vote.
How about, yeah, anyone opposed? Let's do it that way. I hear no opposition.
Okay, so I am going to stop this share and open the meeting up for public comments on any matter not on tonight's agenda. And sorry, I said 1 or 2 minutes per person, so I'm okay to go with 2. If there are any public comments, please raise your hand. I should point out, if you're new to Zoom and if you're on a computer, there's a, you put your cursor at the bottom of the black blob, that is the background for the meeting, and you'll see the word participants. If you click on the word participants, you will not only see all of the participants, but you will see a thing you can click on that says raise hand. And so that's how you raise your hand. And if you're on the phone, I believe it is *6. You hit *6. And if it's not *6, it's *9. Or given that we're a small group, you can just blurt out, I would like to speak. Anyway, does anybody have public comments? Moving on. John, your hand is going up in front of your screen. And John, you're talking and you're muted.
I am, have to keep pressing buttons on my iPad, but no, there are no hands up.
Right, but you were also muted and your hand was just going like this on the screen.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
So basically, there's only the one item, and that is a motion that was put forth at City Council and referred straight to the Planning and Land Use, which is known as PLUM Committee. And this is the motion, and there was a whole lot of opposition, but basically the motion is that from Joe Busciano in Council District 15, and for some reason seconded by Paul Koretz, even though he usually would have the opposite position. But anyway, the motion is that generally speaking, nuisance properties are a longstanding concern. Empty structures, often owned by developers who are in the process of completing the entitlement phase of projects, are prime targets for blight and criminal activity. And this essentially, these nuisances pulls resources from the fire department, the police department, and the building and safety department, who have to respond perhaps repeatedly to calls generated by the processes. So the current entitlement process requires that a developer have approved plans for a new project before they can be granted a demolition permit. Actually, in our area, they would also have to have issued building permits. The motions points out that the entitlement process can be lengthy. It's often delayed depending on the degree of complexity, or not stated here, appeals, which can leave empty structures without use or occupancy for years at a time, creating a space that can be used for criminal activity. So the motion is basically to create a different structural demolition policy that would allow these developers to go ahead and demolish the structures. So needless to say, there was an immediate outcry of email commentary against this, a lot of posted comments in the city clerk's council file management system where you can post comments, and a lot of public testimony, 100% of which was opposed. And then this was adopted, not actually as a final, adopted to direct the departments to come up with a report, but adopted on the consent calendar by the Plum Committee last week. So I put this on the agenda in part because sitting through that hearing, and then despite the fact that there was all the testimony, they took it on consent, which is kind of a violation of the normal rules at all, because once something has had testimony, or the members of the council members who sit on Plum are supposed to have some degree of discussion, even if then they're going to adopt it. But in any case, it was adopted by consent without regard to the great deal of opposition. And so I wanted to have UNNC consider weighing in on this. I think you can tell by what I'm saying that I just think it's I know I'm being recorded. I think this is a boneheaded.
Laura, I'll jump in and read your mind here.
No, I think it is a boneheaded. Well, no, it's exactly the opposite of what's good for our neighborhoods. And it gives the ability of developers to just evict everybody out of their buildings and then let them rot to such point as the city thinks they're a nuisance. Okay, John, go ahead.
To me, that's exactly what's going to happen. There are numerous ways to make any property a nuisance. And though I understand the intent of this is to not, I always like to take impediments out that aren't valid or that really aren't creating a non-benefit to a neighborhood, but this one seems to be full of possibilities for developers to take advantage of them, as exactly as you say, Laura. If not evicting tenants, to defer maintenance, to make them unsecure. There's so many ways that, I could make my property a nuisance within a month if I wanted to, my house. It'd be so easy. And if a developer sees a roadblock, whether it's historic, whether it's whatever it is, they could use this to advocate for a demolition and then not be opposed. So I agree, there's too many loopholes. So until they can close loopholes and really target what they're intending out of this, I think it's not good for the entire city. It's just not, too many loopholes, too easy.
Right. Let me ask, do I need to keep this up on the screen, or can I eliminate the screen share?
I think you can eliminate it.
Okay. So yeah, I had posted in our advanced agenda packet, and I wasn't doing a lot of editing. I was trying to capture as many of the posted comments in the clerk's council file management system as I could. So I downloaded and posted a whole bunch of comments, but I don't think I need to screen share letter after letter after letter, and I think they're still being filed anyway. So but what I put on the agenda was not a complete summary of other people's comments, but a pretty good one. For me, I just feel that if a person, a developer, buys a house or an apartment building and the lights are on and the water is running and they have an opportunity to relocate tenants legally, and where the tenants are getting a benefit and not being made homeless, they still should be obligated to keep the lights on, keep the water running, put in a caretaker paid if needed, so that they don't, have a new round of tenants if that's their goal. But in the meantime, that shouldn't be their goal in the middle of a COVID pandemic. I know this won't be forever, or in the middle of a homelessness crisis, which I don't see being solved anytime soon. So I see no good reason to encourage a person who has a project in mind emptying out a property and disconnecting the electric, disconnecting the water, disconnecting the gas, leaving it vacant to rot. I mean, demolition by neglect.
Yeah.
It's so wrong on so many levels. And we are already seeing projects that we approve that have gone through the entitlement process here in UNNC, but have not gotten their funding because of everything that's going on, and not being able to proceed. And I would not have wanted demolitions in those cases because sometimes the funding never arrives. So it's not really good enough, in my opinion, to even say that they're finished with the land use entitlement process. I feel like they really have to have issued building permits, not just RTI, ready to issue. It's not quite the same thing. Ready to issue permits.
So,
Anyway,
Laura,
so I just
so
feel
I
like
would say,
there's so
do we
many
have-
problems.
yeah, so many loophole. Any other anyone else have an
Thoughts?
opinion that's a viewpoint on this?
I'll jump in. So I guess just in general, I would be opposed to this motion, but I do have kind of a contextual question because I wasn't able to access the language of the proposed motion. And I'm curious, is this sort of like a new section to the rule or the regulations surrounding this, or is this a revision of existing language? Does anyone know enough to tell me? Because I would guess, and that's being driven by why not just modify the existing language in the rules and whatnot to address the issue that maybe developers are facing, other than this brand new, what appears to be like this radical solution that
Yeah,
has no
sweet.
brakes on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would be something I don't know if we can answer that, but I think that'd be something if we did write a letter, whatever position we're taking on it, we might add that let's address the intent of this and put the brakes on, as you say, Paul, on things that aren't intended, which would probably be a lot of demolitions of things that shouldn't be demolished for whatever reason, historic, evicting people, causing homelessness. And so I think that could be part of a letter.
Right. Well, and there's the technical aspect is that the California Environmental Quality Act. So if a project's going through an entitlement process for land use, they are subject to what's called CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act. And it says you cannot split a project. So if somebody's proposing, I'm going to make it up, building 36 units, 5 stories on a single lot, wherever, and they need to go through an entitlement process, part of that process, part of the project description is demolition of whatever the thing is, and then construct. So that's part of CEQA. So this has a fatal flaw in that it would violate CEQA, and I don't know how it could go forward anyway. The intent is to eliminate nuisance properties in neighborhoods. So I feel that therefore what should be the law is to require anyone in an entitlement process to either maintain the tenancies or maintain and be subject to inspection the viability of a building, because they may not be approved for what they applied for. Or again, may not ever get the funding to do it either, but may not even be approved. So.
And is it your reading of this motion that, for example, like Elegant Manor, AKA the Fitzgerald House,
Yeah.
like that could have been designated like a nuisance property and torn down, right?
It
Under
was
this-
designated a nuisance property and could have been torn down if it had not already been designated historic, actually. It was designated. This is a little different.
Okay.
But it's true for, if the neighborhood wants to ask the city to declare a property a nuisance,
Mm.
flipping it around to the opposite, that's a several years process and involves the city potentially assigning a receiver, going to court and getting a receiver appointed. So this just seems to be the wrong solution for preventing nuisance properties.
Yes, it seems like an excuse to tear down something a developer wants to tear down.
Right.
And if I would think that of 90% of the cases that came through on this using this rule weren't actually nuisances. It was more of an annoyance to a developer to tear something down that was in their way. I would think 10% might be actually nuisances, but I mean, I just know how developers work, and I'm usually pro development. Everyone knows that. And I
Right.
usually like things to happen, but this seems like, developers are wily, and
Well,
it's just, like I said, easy to make a nuisance.
Well, we had a situation on Venice Boulevard, just west of 6th Avenue. I think there were 6 units, 5 or 6 unit building, which was eventually torn down, and the TOC project is under construction just east of the Click Charter School. But somehow, mysteriously, all of the tenants one day were gone. And somehow a month later, there were vagrants and it was becoming a nuisance, and they were begging the city to be allowed to tear it down because there was a nuisance. But it's like, where'd the tenants go? Why didn't you secure it when somehow by some magic the tenants are all gone?
Yeah, and there's also vulnerable people who may not know the rules, and if they get something significantly less than what developers are required to do to relocate or to mitigate displacement. So, does anyone else in the audience have a comment on this, or a suggestion of what we might add to a motion if a motion is made?
Audrey, I would have thought
I
you
see
had
no
some
hands.
thoughts.
I think we've said it all.
Yeah, I would agree. That was a very comprehensive list in the agenda.
Well, I was debating whether to be comprehensive or not comprehensive in the agenda, but then I thought, put it out there. Just put it
So
out
I
there.
would like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion, and we can adjust this because I'm going to just talk off the top of my head here. I'd like to make a motion that.
Are you typing or me? I can type. You can talk.
Okay. I make a motion to oppose the motion. The city council, was it a motion? What is this? What is it exactly?
It is exactly a motion that the Department of City Planning and the Department of Building and Safety be directed to report with recommendations on a new structural demolition policy that allows developers in the entitlement process to be granted demolition permits for properties that have become a public nuisance without the need for an approved set of plans. While ensuring.
So I'd like to make a motion that UNNC write a letter in opposition to the motion presented to the city council to direct the city planning department and LADBS to revise the rules for demolitions that would allow nuisance properties to have expedited or otherwise differing path. How would we say that? It's not expediting. It's about.
Well, it would be an expedited path.
Okay, any expedited path that is brakeless, to use Paul's word.
That is what?
I want to put a brake without brakes. And I think let's just. I think we oppose
without mechanisms.
Well,
without loopholes for developers to create nuisances to allow them to proceed with demolitions that they desire. I don't
Okay.
want to say that with less cynically.
Wait. I'm just going to put, and that would allow nuisance properties to have an expedite, we're opposed to a motion that would
Yes.
allow nuisance properties to have an expedited path to demolition, especially when this would seem to provide loopholes for
For develop,
Take out
developers.
the scene and just say would.
yeah, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It may not seem to. I think it would create loopholes. I agree.
who would purposefully
Less is better.
allow a property to fall into disrepair or worse.
Or
I'm
otherwise-
just
or
gonna
other-
post,
or
I'm gonna
otherwise-
post this and tell me what needs, that isn't necessarily your motion, but that's,
Yeah.
I just
But
posted
we-
something.
John moves to recommend that UNC write a letter in opposition to the motion that would allow nuisance properties to have an expedited path to demolition, especially to provide loopholes for developers who would purposefully allow a property to fall in disrepair or worse. And I might even say, or otherwise create nuisances in
Where none existed
create-
previously.
where none existed previously with the purpose to demolish. And I'm not sure if we should go into detail about what we're, we might say specifically, this would allow for unneeded or I want to say two things about historic properties and about evictions.
Well, this endangered, so it's not just historic, it endangers
Yeah.
potentially historic properties. But
Yeah.
here's what I'm going to try and make a suggestion. I think what we want to do is that UNNC writes a letter
Mhm.
to oppose the motion, but also adopts a resolution based perhaps on that list I put in the agenda itself.
Okay. Sure, I'd like that. I will amend my motion to say as much. And to write a letter to adopt the points of opposition listed in the agenda.
Ooh.
Now, agenda subject to further amendment. Did I capture everything one needed in the agenda?
I think so.
Well,
If we missed
sorry about
something
my
or nuance,
grammar. This all does need rewriting a little bit, what I just
sure.
wrote.
We always allow to capture the spirit of, we don't have to do verbatim.
Right. So I'm going to look back at the agenda though. Well, the one thing I think I didn't put on this because nobody had mentioned it. So my thought, this agenda was capturing what other people were writing that I agreed with, but that other people wrote. I also really, really, really hate it when people create purposeful vacant lots. It reduces the tax base. So in other words, the city and county lose money if what used to be a building that had a value is now gone, but there's no new building. So the tax base is reduced. And I don't see that I put this on the agenda.
Yeah,
Well,
I think,
can I make a comment here? Is that I think this motion should be strictly confined to situations where a developer is in fact in a review process and not where someone simply wishes to clear a lot. I would
Yeah.
make a
Right.
big distinction
Yeah.
between the circumstances. And I think that if somebody wants to clear a lot and has no development project in mind, that this motion should not address that situation.
Mhm.
Well,
I
that, well,
want a
that is,
mechanism to, I don't want to keep true nuisance properties, but I want a mechanism to discriminate between what's, a real nuisance or hazard and what's a developer created nuisance.
right, well, I think that's what Audrey was saying as well. I mean, there's three situations here. A person is clearing a lot because they want to, which is usually not quite a true statement. They're trying to make it often a better, have a better ability to in the future. They're land banking for future development. But on the face of it, let's just say that people do like to look at their vacant lots, maybe. That's one situation. Another one is when it is a true nuisance, not because there's a developer plan, but because it's an actual abandoned property, right? And we've had those here in West Adams for sure. And the third one is the one that this council motion is addressing, which is a developer is in the process of applying to be approved to build something that is not by right, meaning he or she may or may not get an approval, and he or she may or may not get ever get building permits for it. So Audrey's correct. That's the situation we are addressing. It's more narrowly defined.
And I think that we should confine ourselves to responding to what
Mhm.
the council proposed and not the two situations.
Right, exactly. Okay,
Yeah, I think
and I
we're all
agree.
dancing around the same thing. It's just so full of loopholes to
Right.
have demolitions all over the place.
Well, obviously, the recommendation to the governing board, technically we'll have to have the council file number. We would need to do a resolution, and that's easy if we pass this, and have them adopt it. I mean, we have to do a proposed one and then the summary motion. So, John, the question is, do I need to retype this? Is this the spirit of a motion?
I think it is the spirit of emotion.
Okay. With typos and all.
Well, I think we're all, anyone have a differing opinion? I mean, we can vote on this regardless if there's just differing opinion, but does anyone have any further opinions or differing opinions on this?
So Joyce's hand went up for a moment and then went back down.
I don't know. I can only do one thing at a time. I got.
No, that's
chat
okay.
open.
So Joyce, did you have a
No,
comment?
No,
There-
I hit raise hand mistakenly.
Oh, okay.
It happens.
It happened.
Well, I'd like to call.
Well, it
I'd
doesn't
like to
happen to
call.
me. I don't get to do that.
So we still have Carlos has joined us. I'd like to call the question on the motion presented. That's up
Okay,
in
so-
the chat.
So oh, it's not been seconded.
Oh, so I make that motion. Anyone
let's sort of
second?
state the motion again. That John moves to recommend that UNNC write a letter in opposition to the motion, which would be, I don't even have the council file number here, but to the
one in the
motion
agenda.
that's on the agenda that would allow nuisance properties to have an expedited path to demolition, especially when this would provide loopholes for developers who would purposely allow a property to fall into disrepair or worse, or otherwise create nuisances where none existed previously with the purpose to demolish. And we also recommend that UNNC adopt a resolution that it adopts the points of opposition that were listed in the planning and zoning agenda. Written better. That's the motion. Certainly typed
Okay.
better, but
Is there-
written better.
So is there a second among our merry band of 7 people?
I
Anybody?
second it.
Okay, Paul seconds.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
I'm reading the paragraph that she typed and I'm not understanding any of it. Just briefly, I kind of missed what the actual motion is. So is it
Okay,
quickly, brief?
yeah, so we're making a recommendation, if this passes, to the UNNC governing board to do two things. One is write a letter that states our opposition to the motion that was proposed by Joe Busciano.
I missed that. I missed what he's proposing.
He is proposing changing the city's policy that at the moment requires, if a developer is anywhere in the city is applying for a variance or a conditional use permit or anything else to build a project that would otherwise not be allowed by right. So in what's called an entitlement process.
Yeah, I understand variance. I understand
Right.
variance.
Right. So at the moment, currently as we speak, once you're in an entitlement process, you may not demolish what's on the property until your proposal has been approved by the planning department and the city council. Depending on where the project is, it may also not be allowed to have a demolition until the building permit has also been issued. So that depends on where it is. This new motion from Joe Busciano is that it would eliminate the requirement to have approved plans, or that is approval for the new project, if the building that's sitting on the lot has become a nuisance.
Has become a nuisance.
We're opposing that.
Can I ask a question? Has become a nuisance and gone into deterioration?
They are not defining the word nuisance, but I think the implication is people and not just crumbling, but either way, they're not defining it.
Which is part of the problem. They haven't defined it, and what that does is the developer can easily create a nuisance, get it deemed a nuisance, and then get a easy pass to demolition.
So basically, excuse me, I'm a little slow sometimes. So right now, the situation is that if the building is considered a nuisance, it's deteriorating, disrepair, they want to demolish it. If they've already got the plans, they can do so. Is that correct?
Generally, yes.
Well,
generally, yes.
Generally. And John is, hold on, Laura. And John is saying that he's in opposition of them doing that because anybody can come up with any little reason to consider something a nuisance, building gone. So John wants to oppose and have it that with or without approval, it cannot. Can you help me out, John?
No, it would either revert to what it is today, where you need plans approved, ready to issue permit, whatever you want to define that, or they revise this motion to, I don't know how they would do that. What's a real nuisance? I mean, that's full of loopholes. So I think properties that are nuisances that have plans that are approved for the property and don't have a store, everything else gets approved for demolition, then they can demolish, but they can't demolish in advance of that just because it's a nuisance.
Well,
And that's That's what you're trying to put into place, John, right?
No, keep it the way it is unless something better is
Okay,
put forward. I think what was put forward is too liberal and allows too many loopholes for developers to create nuisances. So I'm saying don't create that loophole, keep things the way they are, propose something different if you want to solve the problem of nuisance buildings.
okay, I'm in agreement with John, and thank you, and you guys can move on. I appreciate the time.
No, thank you, Joyce. I mean, it's
Yep,
just
that was
by,
good.
by way of explanation, an example, we UNNC have an open case. It's going to be heard maybe in January at City Council. But a single family house on a block that's zoned high, but was filled with single family homes, or is filled with single family homes and duplexes. And a developer bought a house from a family and they moved out because they sold their house, obviously. And he just turned off the power and turned off the water, didn't even fence it. And he's been in a 2.5 year process of that's not yet finished to apply for a big apartment building. He's won some, he's lost some, but in the meantime, there's been vandals and vagrants, and the neighbors are not real happy. There's a really sweet older lady who lives right next door, and she's very fearful because people are coming and going and going and coming. And now the developer is saying, oh my God, it's horrible. My workers are being threatened. Well, why did you abandon the property and leave it open? I mean, it's like he did this. Nobody else did. Excuse me. So that's what, I mean, we're trying to avoid that situation.
So, well, I would like to move the question, move the motion.
Okay.
Bring it to a vote.
All right. I'm going to sneeze. I don't have COVID. Sorry, you guys.
So we don't have that many participants, right? Let's, I think, can we take a roll call? I'm going to ask everyone to unmute and I'll just go through the list so we can get an actual.
Okay. We have a new person who's just arrived who probably hasn't been on the meeting, so probably should not be voting.
Yeah. So let's just go down the list. Audrey?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Carlos?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Chris? Chris can unmute. Okay, Jasmine, you can unmute.
Yes.
Great. So Chris?
Or Chris could raise his hand or do a yellow,
Yeah, either
or
or.
do a thumbs down.
Okay, and Librada, we're just finishing up.
Yeah, I just arrived, so I'm not participating right now.
Okay, so we'll
you.
take an abstention from you. Thank you. So Chris, so it will pass. Chris, we'd love
Laura's
to
a
have your vote.
yes.
Yeah, so Laura, yes, I'm a yes. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in favor. 1 abstention from Librada, and Chris wasn't able to vote. So I would call that an abstention, I guess. So
Right.
6 to 2 to 0. Great.
Okay. I have
Laura,
7.
what's the time? What's the
I
time?
have 7. I have 7 yeses.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6. Oh, 7. You're right. 7 and 2. You're correct.
Okay. All right.
Great.
Great.
Is this on fire, Laura? Can this be written for the January?
Yeah,
voting board
I would
meeting?
like to do it. We should do it for January. I don't know if it's quote on fire. I would like it to be a fire that's put out, meaning, okay, they forwarded it, but maybe, I don't know if it's forwarded up to council, full council, or forwarded straight to building and safety and planning. I will try and find that out. But we have a new council member. Maybe he can help us out on this one. Okay. So the next item on the agenda would be follow up to previous cases, what's appeared on the ENS, and old business. So, John.
I have one item.
Okay.
1619, 1623 Van Ness, which this committee voted to, you might know there were two historic houses that were left off of a survey to be contributors to the character overlay zone of Arlington Heights. And therefore they were subject to demolition. A developer unwittingly bought them, seeing that they were not surveyed as historic, proposed plans to demolish them and put up 8 units. And just before they pulled their permits, they were all in line. Nothing was going wrong necessarily. They were going by the book. That these buildings were flagged by UNNC for demolition. It was apparent, clearly apparent, they were contributors to the overlay zone. And the council, CD10 under Herb Wesson, back in June, or actually it was back in March, issued or put in a motion to council to recommend that these two houses become HCMs, historic cultural monuments, to protect them. Obviously, this put a wrench in the developer's plans, and they have since redone their plans to preserve the houses and create 4 units in the rear. So it's basically going to become 6 units, 2 in the houses, 4 units in the rear. And we've seen renderings of it, and you can barely see the new units from the street. So it's a preservation forward zoning, and it's all within the zone, and it conforms mostly, except for a small administrative change to the CPIO. Anyway, what has happened now is the HCM is still active. The developer has submitted to Building and Safety for a new permit for the 4 units in the back and preserving the 2 houses in the front. And so with the changeover in the council office, we are not sure what's going to happen with the HCM nomination, Historic Cultural Monument. And the developer obviously would like the HCM monument to be removed so they can move forward with the revised preservation forward plan and restoring the houses to become regular single units again. So anyway, that's nothing that we need to move on, but that developer has submitted to for plan check about 2 weeks ago, and they're looking to proceed, and they're eager to proceed. You know, time is money for them, and they've been very cooperative. I worked with them very, very closely throughout the summer to get the plans that fit, and they're very interested in making this happen. But obviously, having an HCM on the site doesn't thwart the project. They can still do it with the HCM, but obviously it would be easier without it.
Right.
So that's just an update.
Well, John, actually, further update. Their application actually ended up appearing on the biweekly ENSCNC report, which is the report that every neighborhood council gets for all the entitlement projects filed for the prior 2 weeks. So it actually is on the most recent,
Great.
Yeah, December 6th. So my question is this going to be a long process? Do they need us to have a governing board take this forward? So for the UNNC to vote yes, we approve this? Do you know?
Not necessarily. What they need most is, because the council office can do whatever they want. Of course, the council office would love to have a recommendation by UNNC.
I don't think the process is not as simple as withdrawing the HCM. I've already talked to Lambert about it. It's not that simple. You know, because they're in the process already. I know what they want.
Yeah. So I would say not only what they want, but it is a positive. It's a win-win-win situation for everybody, right, including the preservation of the houses without having a legal battle with Waha or anyone else.
No, I understand.
So I'm not explaining it to you, Laura. I'm just explaining it to the group. So I think whatever we can, I would recommend whatever we can do. Again, we don't need to do anything
Okay,
tonight.
John,
I just wanted to give you a public update.
Yeah, I understand, but I need to know what I'm doing on the agenda for January 7th.
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
So I
have a
understand-
narrow
yeah, I
question. I have a
Sure.
narrow question, which is, should we be bringing this forward to the governing board,
Yes.
not about the HCM, but
Yes.
about approving the exception?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think let's do that.
Right.
I think that is yeah, you're right. That is a good, simple, so it's
Right.
something we've already voted for in this committee. So I think,
Right.
and we never brought it to UNNC because it wasn't needed, but now
Right.
I think we should bring that forward. I
Okay,
agree.
and we don't need another action here.
We do not.
What
I mostly wanted to give everyone an update
Sure.
and just so it's fully out in the open.
Right. And okay. So, and then I have a couple of updates on we have 3 open, I want to say cases. They're not our cases, but we have 3 open cases headed to city council that have been deferred. They were all scheduled in November, December, and then canceled and booted to January and February. Because as Herb Wesson's staff was winding down, they didn't want to take permanent actions when we had a new council member. So one is the Historic Cultural Monument nomination for something called the School of I, which is an odd name, but it's the Art Deco Streamline Moderne building that is on the corner of Venice and St. Andrews. So Cultural Heritage Commission recommended, I think unanimously, that it become a city landmark. And the normal step from there is fairly pro forma. It goes to city council, and unless there's major opposition or an attorney threatening to sue, the city council usually adopts what the commission has recommended. But it was canceled off the agenda and will be on the agenda, back on the Planning and Land Use Management Committee agenda on January 21. Similarly, the situation on Wilton Place, the house that's a mess that I've mentioned already, but an appeal case on CEQA and vesting, which basically is pitting the character residential overlay zone for Angeles Vista and the fact that that house on Wilton Place, I want to say it's 1547 Wilton Place, is likely should be landmarked. It was designed by a very, very famous architect, versus a 30 unit, proposal for 30 units. Anyway, that has also been put off till January 21. And third case, 1509 Gramercy Place, which also is a block away, also in the Angeles Vista Character Residential Overlay Zone, also an appeal related to the potential historic status of a 1902 Mission Revival house that was on the property, and whether or not the project is vested, meaning is it allowed to be built even though there is a character residential overlay zone. That's now on February 4th. So the big deal with this is simply UNNC already has its position for all 3 of these cases. The big deal is that it just didn't, because of the pandemic and everything else, these cases where the council office had stated in public meetings that they are standing by us, has become moot, and we have work to do in the first couple of weeks of January to find out if the new council office will continue to stand by UNNC or if it won't. So, I mean, that's our situation politically, but we've already submitted all our letters and everything else. Okay. John has walked away. I don't know if he's walked far away. Yeah, and you're muted.
I'm here. I'm serving dinner.
I see.
So I'm here.
Okay. Just wait for
listening,
dinner. We're almost done.
I know we are. That's why I'm serving dinner.
We're almost done. So I have nothing out on the ENS, which gives us a heads up for what's been filed. There hasn't been much filed very recently. We do have now reactivated, and we'll be seeing this on at the January 6th Planning and Zoning Committee meeting, another office building proposal on Crenshaw, 3000 Crenshaw will be on our agenda, and it's 100% office. It is not housing. And so that's my update. Anybody else? I don't think we have any old business. Hey, John, just be patient.
I know. I just have so many things.
One more minute.
I know.
Just one, no, don't walk away. One more minute.
I'm here.
And
I'm
go.
here. I'm a foot away. I'm just doing things really close.
Okay, so that would be it on my end. And so, John, I'm just going to say, is this the end of the meeting? Shall we be adjourned?
I don't have anything else. I just wanted to report on that. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So
anyone else have anything?
okay, I'm going to put in the chat just so I remember that we need on January 7 agenda the Van Ness properties. So just putting in the chat just as a reminder. Okay. All right. Seeing nothing else, I think we can adjourn this meeting. And we'll see you all on Wednesday, January 6th. Same time, same place. That would be Zoom.
Yep.
That would be Zoom. Okay.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
all.
Have a great holiday. Thanks, Laura. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
John?
Good night. I end up staying.
John,
Yes, I responded. Yeah, Jasmine. I have your phone number.
okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Bye.